Everyone, and welcome to AmeriCorps VISTA and the first webinar of your orientation, Countdown to VISTA Service. Your VISTA service is a year-long commitment, and this period before you start service is meant to provide you with the opportunity to learn about VISTA service and your benefits, as well as to ensure that this is the right choice for you. My name is Chris Hawks, and I'm joined by Andy King. We will be your host today from the VISTA headquarters in Washington, D.C. You will also see our AmeriCorps VISTA colleague, Kate Jordan and Khadija Carr, as well as our partners at LSI, Steve Gray and Kim Adams, in the chat and Q&A. Your comments to the pre-session chat show that you've come to the right place. Some of you have seen poverty firsthand, and all of you see VISTA as an opportunity tied to the purpose of helping others.
And I want to add my welcome as well. This is Andy. And I'd like to emphasize that joining AmeriCorps VISTA is a really great experience and wonderful opportunity. The more you put into it, the more you're going to get out of it. From all of us here at VISTA headquarters, we're very excited to welcome you and get you prepared for your VISTA service. So let's begin with today's session objectives. This session is going to cover the types of support that are available to you as a VISTA member, what you need to complete before you start service, what you need to do on your very first day as a VISTA. We'll talk about the benefits that you'll receive as a VISTA member and review some of the conditions of your VISTA service. And of course, we'll leave time for your questions. So Chris, you want to kick us off?
Sure. So let's start by looking at the two main websites that will support you throughout the year and even after your service, My AmeriCorps and the VISTA Campus. My AmeriCorps, which is my.americorps.gov, is where you apply to your AmeriCorps position, where you complete your direct deposit and other forms, and where you can access your VISTA assignment description, or VAD. It is also where, in a few weeks, you will be able to access your living allowance statements, request certain benefits, and print a letter that verifies your VISTA service. We'll talk a little more about these later on. The VISTA Campus, which is vistacampus.gov, is where you complete your onboarding coursework and tutorials. It also has learning resources for your entire year and is a great resource to learn about all of your VISTA benefits. Additionally, the VISTA Campus is where you can find the VISTA Member Handbook, which is a great source of information both now and throughout your year of service. You can also connect with other VISTAs through the campus discussion forums.
So the VISTA Campus has a lot to offer, and there's really too much for us to explore within this session. So we encourage you to dive into the site because it's an important element in helping you navigate your year of service and help you build skills and obtain professional development opportunities. A quick look at the navigation bar of the campus lets you know that there are materials to help you as you live and serve as a VISTA. Here's just a snapshot of what you'll find under the Work section. You can also locate and reach out to other VISTAs under the Connect and Learn section. On the VISTA Campus, we also offer webinars for you as VISTA members on a range of topics related both to life as a VISTA, things like living on the living allowance or using your Siegel AmeriCorps Education Award. And we also have webinars related to the work of VISTAs, things like building a digital ad campaign or strategizing your funding search. We record these sessions and we offer them as webinars on demand, so you can go back and watch them at any time. In addition to the webinars, AmeriCorps VISTA has another training opportunity that might interest you. It's AmeriCorps VISTA In-Service Training. In-Service Training is designed to bring together VISTA members early in their service year to strengthen their skills, build knowledge, and create networks for effective service. We'll talk a little bit more about IST in next week's webinar. We also offer 4 longer online courses to VISTA members. on topics like volunteer mobilization, resource development, grant writing, community engagement, and poverty in your community. These courses combine readings, assignments, online discussion, and facilitator feedback. The courses are free, and if you pass, for some of them you can receive college credit recommendations. We're not currently taking enrollment for courses, but later on in your service year, you'll get an email when we're ready to take enrollment.
Throughout your year, you will likely want, and at times need, support. The VISTA program involves a lot of different layers that help support the work that VISTA members are doing, as well as supporting all of you, the VISTA members. First off is your supervisor. Your supervisor is there to support you in your day-to-day tasks. It is important to keep your supervisor up to date with any changes in your plans. If your plans change and maybe you can't relocate at this time or a personal circumstance prevents you from serving, please let both your VISTA supervisor and myself, Chris Hawks, know as soon as possible. Next up is the CNCS State Office. CNCS, which is Corporation for National and Community Service. Your state office is the CNCS office that oversees your project. They can be a great resource for you if you have any concerns about your project or if there's a question that your supervisor maybe doesn't know or can't answer. The state office can be easily reached by email using the state abbreviation at cns.gov. So, for example, if you're serving in the state of Texas, it would be tx@cns.gov. Finally, you are also supported by VISTA Headquarters, which includes the VISTA Training Unit and the VISTA Member Support Unit, or VMSU, among other departments. The VMSU is a helpful resource for questions regarding your benefits. There is an AmeriCorps VISTA resources and contact sheet that can be found on the Starting VISTA page. The PDF is also in this webinar's handouts to download in the pod just to the right of the slides under the chat. And we suggest you keep it where you can find it. You can also manage your own support by taking time to navigate vistacampus.gov and myamericorps.gov so that you're familiar with them and know where to go. And when in doubt, please contact your CNCS state office or the VISTA Member Support Unit through the National Service Hotline.
All right, so now let's talk about the steps that you'll need to complete before your first day of VISTA service. You received an email from Chris that pointed you to the Starting VISTA page on the VISTA campus. If you haven't checked it out yet, please do so. I'm going to highlight what is included there and what you need to complete before your first day of service. So one of the requirements is to complete your onboarding forms, things like direct deposit, your federal tax withholding, or W-4 form, unpaid compensation information, and your end of service benefits selection. All of these forms are located in my.americorps.gov, and they must be completed as soon as possible. These forms are legally required, and again, we can't pay you or start any of your benefits until we have these forms complete. There are special provisions that apply to some benefits once you start service, so be sure to read all the information. We're going to review a few of your benefits later on in this presentation. And in addition to those onboarding forms, you're required to complete some online coursework on the VISTA campus. These online courses are located again on the Starting VISTA page at vistacampus.gov, and you also need to get them done as soon as possible. These courses provide you the necessary information so that you can make an informed decision about your choice to serve as a VISTA member. A special note is that the Terms and Conditions course is linked to your account at my.americorps.gov so that you can certify your acceptance there. You must accept the Terms and Conditions of Service in order to enter as a VISTA member next week. The forms ensure that you receive your living allowance and the other benefits that you're entitled to. And the tutorials will help guide you in your first few weeks as a VISTA member. And again, remember, all of these have to be done before you show up at your VISTA service site next Monday.
So let's talk about your first day of service. We expect you to be at your VISTA project, which is the office where you will be serving, on your first day of service, Monday, March 18th, 2019. And remember that as a VISTA member, you serve for a full year, 365-day term. Those of you who are relocating to serve must be moved into your new places by then. If you're unable to show up on this date, or if you're unsure where to go, make sure you contact your supervisor or state office immediately. And let us know by responding to any of the emails you received from me, Chris Hawks. As a VISTA, you will be serving in a professional work environment, and you'll want to set yourself up for success. We suggest you confirm your plans with your VISTA supervisor if you haven't been in contact for a while, or if you're unsure of the address where you need to report. Some other things it would also be a good idea to confirm the time you should arrive on your first day, possibly the dress code of the organization, the parking situation if you happen to be driving, or other special considerations, maybe the average commute time, or if you should bring anything with you on your first day. Maybe they would ask for paperwork or identification, for example. If you're unable to get into contact with your supervisor during this week prior to your service, please contact your CNCS state office, and they can let you know who to contact. The VISTA program is not responsible for securing your housing. However, if you are in need of housing, you should speak with your supervisor first, as they likely know the area and may be able to advise you on some possible options. You can also search the discussion forums on the VISTA campus to see how other VISTA members utilize each other and resources to benefit them. Take advantage of other housing options, but also be aware to avoid scams. Some possible signs of scams are offers that seem too good to be true, or listings with distorted images maybe, or spelling mistakes. And along with your new supervisor support on the first day, which again is next Monday, March 18th, VISTA headquarters will present a webinar titled Launching Your VISTA Service, which is at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, which is the exact same time as this current webinar started. Similar to this webinar, you will receive an email from Adobe Connect with details for joining the session. We will highlight in the webinar certain points and decisions you must make about your benefits and terms of service. Please note that this will not be a comprehensive overview of your benefits. We still trust that you have reviewed the benefits page on the VISTA campus and that you understand your benefits. We will also administer the oath of office to you. You'll get more details on next Monday's webinar regarding the oath. But it would be a good idea to maybe have it printed beforehand, and if your supervisor doesn't already have it printed for you on your first day, you can feel free to contact me, again, Chris Hawks, and I can send you a link to where to print that. Also on your first day of service, your supervisor will give you a fingerprint kit and instructions as part of the required VISTA background check process. Please note that you will need to use the specific fingerprint kit provided, and you will have 30 days to get fingerprinted starting from your first day of service. We'll also go over this in more detail during next week's webinar.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about your VISTA service. You're about to join VISTA, which is a federal program that started in 1965 as Volunteers in Service to America. Almost 3 decades later, VISTA became part of the AmeriCorps family of programs in 1994 under the federal agency known as the Corporation for National and Community Service, or CNCS. As a VISTA member, you're making a 1-year, 365-day full-time commitment to strengthen and support your community. You will strengthen, expand, and increase the reach of anti-poverty organizations and programs. You'll work on projects with staff and volunteers to build capacity rather than providing direct service yourself to people in need. At the heart of VISTA service is your VISTA assignment description, which we we love acronyms here, so we call that the VAD. Your VAD, or VISTA assignment description, tells you the overarching goals of your project and explains the objectives that you're working towards during your year, and it lays out the specific activities that you will do in order to achieve or accomplish those objectives. All VISTA members should have a VISTA assignment description. If you don't have yours, or if you haven't seen it, you can download a copy of it from your account in my.americorps.gov. If you're unable to locate your VAD in your account, or if it doesn't line up with what you agreed to do, say in your interview, please follow up directly with your VISTA supervisor. Next week, we will provide more details related to the indirect service of VISTA and your VISTA assignment. So please make sure you have your VISTA assignment description by your first day of service.
So before we move on, we're going to pause a second just to see if there are any questions about what you need to do before and on your first day of service. At this time, we'll only be answering some questions that are in the Q&A pod, but at the end of the webinar, we will answer some questions over the phone as well, in addition to questions typed in from the Q&A pod. So give us a second. We're just looking through to see if we have any lined up in the pod.
All right, so we got a question about next week's webinar. So Kate asked, well, most of us are starting our service next week on Monday. All of you should be. And she's wondering if they're going to have to leave work to join the webinar, the launching webinar, next Monday. No, so you're expected to do it from your VISTA project site. This week, when you're confirming things with your supervisor, you might just ask about, confirm that they've got a computer there for you that you can use for the webinar. Your supervisor should have that all lined up, but it never hurts to double check that. So you're expected to join from your service site next Monday, same time as this one.
And we had another question. Someone seemed to have trouble logging on to the VISTA Campus, and I bring this up because this question actually came up in a few emails as well, and I want to make sure that everyone is aware that the VISTA Campus and my.americorps.gov are two separate accounts that are needed. You obviously already have your My AmeriCorps account because that's where you applied to the program. But if you haven't created a separate account on vistacampus.gov, you will have to do so. For this question, if there's any login issues and you already have created an account and already gone through perhaps the, I forgot my password progress, all that whole ordeal with requesting a new password, with any other websites, and it still doesn't work, maybe it doesn't recognize your email, possibly, I would recommend contacting VISTA Campus at ITCon, and I'm actually going to copy that email address into the chat because they can help with any technical issues with the VISTA Campus. And just give me a second and I'll post that to the chat.
All right, and while Chris is doing that, I'll just mention there's also a help at the bottom of the page on the VISTA Campus site, so if you need to contact this webmaster there, the email is available. Another question came up, do you need to do the online coursework and fingerprint every term of VISTA service? Well, it depends. If you do back-to-back service, if you finish up one term of service and start another one the very next day, then you do not, if there's no break in service. But if you have a break in service, depending on how long that is, you may need to complete new coursework or submit new fingerprints. So, but we can check with you on the details of that if that applies to you.
And I see a couple questions regarding benefits, and we're just going to, any questions regarding VISTA benefits, we're going to kind of hold off because we will go through some of those in the following, some of the following slides, so they may be answered there. If by any chance they aren't answered, we will certainly be happy to answer those questions at the end of this webinar.
Yeah, so here's a question that is relevant. It says, do we need to complete the VISTA online coursework before actually starting work? And the answer is yes. So on that Starting VISTA page of the VISTA Campus, it outlines all the pre-service coursework that you need to complete before you start service, so before Monday. And of course, we're going to check. So if you haven't done it, you're going to get an email, a nice, gentle but firm reminder to get that done. So if you could please get that done quickly, that'll cut down on the amount of work we've got to do here to send out those reminders.
And do one more question and then move on. And again, we'll have ample time at the end for additional questions. But there was someone who asked because they were disconnected and heard something about dress code. They were wondering if there was a uniform, a VISTA uniform to wear. So no. So we'll actually go over in next Monday's webinar about certain VISTA gear that we'll provide you, but that's not a uniform that you're required to wear. But again, as mentioned earlier, you should reach out to your supervisor to check on certain things like dress code at your site. They may have a certain dress code that you're not aware of, and I would recommend just giving them a call beforehand to double check certain things like that. That and the parking situation or commute time, other factors in that regard. So we'll move on and go over some of the benefits of service. So as a VISTA member, there are a lot of benefits available during your year. As you've seen, this page of the VISTA Campus contains an overview of all your benefits. Some, such as the living allowance, are available to all VISTAs. Other benefits may only be useful for some of you, such as child care assistance. It's your responsibility to look up the details and action steps required to make use of your benefits. If you have questions, make a note to review the benefits section of the VISTA Campus after this webinar. It's a really good resource. Right now, we will provide details about some of the benefits that seem to generate the most questions from VISTAs.
All right, so let's begin talking about the living allowance, since most people like to get paid. As you probably know, information on the VISTA living allowance is available from the benefits page of the VISTA Campus. If you click on the Resources tab, which is highlighted there with the arrow, you'll find that there is a lot of more information about the living allowance than was on the Information tab. And there are resources there to help you learn how to live on the living allowance. Here you'll also find a living allowance calendar and access to a table that shows the living allowance rates. If you don't know what the amount of your living allowance is, this is the place to go. Of course, you can also ask your VISTA supervisor or your CNCS state office, or call the National Service Hotline in that order. A little bit more about the living allowance. You might be interested to know when you're going to get paid. So does anyone know when your first living allowance payment is due to come? If so, please type your answer in the chat, which is just to the right of the slide. All right, Lauren was so quick.
Yeah.
April 5th, and a bunch of you know that as well. So you're absolutely right, those of you who said April 5th. Your first living allowance is scheduled on that day, which is a Friday. VISTAs are paid every 2 weeks on Fridays. And while this information applies to most VISTAs, some of you will be paid directly from your VISTA sponsor. And if you're not sure, please ask your VISTA supervisor to find out if you're paid directly by them because they might have a slightly different schedule than the national program. A few other things to know: federal taxes are withheld from your living allowance, but state taxes are not. So you have to determine on your own what your level of responsibility is for state taxes. And I suggest you check with your state tax authority. They probably have a website to get more details about that. If you're paid directly by the VISTA program, you can access living allowance statements in your account in my.americorps.gov. However, if you're paid by your VISTA sponsor, then you'll get pay statements from them. Another thing to note is that your VISTA service does not qualify you to receive unemployment compensation after your year of service is over. This is because you're not an employee of the federal government nor of the sponsor where you're serving, so no unemployment insurance is being provided. Let's talk about direct deposit. In order to ensure that you receive your living allowance, it's critical to complete your direct deposit information correctly. If either the routing number or the account number that you enter is not correct, then you're not going to get paid as you should on schedule. And if there's an error, which prevents you from getting paid, it's important to note that you'll have to wait at least 2 more weeks until the next pay period in order to get paid. Now, if you have paper checks, you can find the routing number and account number for your checking account there on the bottom line of your check. And if you don't have those, you can always go to your bank's website and look for, do your online banking, get a copy of your account statement, and get the information from there. Because it's so important to get that information right, you might want to call your bank just to make sure that you've got the right information. And we really recommend that you double and triple check the numbers. Make sure they're right in your account.
And related to the living allowance and income is public assistance that may be tied to income or money you are receiving. If you are already receiving public assistance, such as TANF or LIHEAP, then your VISTA living allowance or any other payments you receive from the VISTA program should not affect the level of assistance you receive. Likewise, in applying for new public assistance benefits, your living allowance should not be factored in when determining the level of benefits you received. Now, the sole exception to this provision is with SNAP, which was formerly called food stamps. If you enroll in SNAP now or at any time during your year of service, your living allowance and other VISTA payments will be counted as income in calculating your eligibility, as well as the benefit level. If you were already receiving SNAP prior to enrolling in the VISTA program, your benefit will remain unchanged. Public benefits are managed by state or local entities, and CNCS is not involved in how they are administered. So you'll want to speak with the local caseworker for advice. In about 2 weeks, you will be able to access, view, and print your service letters from your homepage in My AmeriCorps or my.americorps.gov. When applying for public assistance, you'll be able to print a letter that cites the authority for what's called income disregard. You can get this from your accounts.
All right, so let's shift and talk about the end of service benefit. After successfully completing your year of service, you're eligible for one of 2 benefits, either the Education Award or the cash stipend. The Education Award can be used to pay back federal student loans or to pay for education at any Title IV institution. That is, it's a school or a university that accepts federal funds. You have 7 years to use the Education Award after you finish service, and you're not able to transfer it to anyone else. Now, the cash stipend is paid out by direct deposit at the very end of your VISTA service. The most important detail to know is that if you're unsure which benefit you should choose, I suggest that you pick the Education Award, because then you'll have until the end of the 10th month of service that you can switch to the cash stipend. But if you pick the cash stipend, once you start service, you're not able to change your mind, and you'll just get the cash stipend. So choosing the cash stipend is a final decision, but if you pick the education award, you have flexibility up until the 10th month of service. There's a lot of details that relate to the education award and how to use it, institutions that may match the Ed Award, and other things that you will want to know. And those are found on the VISTA Campus in the benefits section. For anyone who has student loans, there are ways that you can postpone repayment of federally backed student loans during your year of service. If you pick the Education Award, you can request what's called National Service Forbearance for your federally backed student loans. And that means that you do not make monthly loan payments during your year, and you can request that the National Service Trust, that's a body here at the CNCS, you can ask them to pay off the interest that builds up on your loan during your year. Just be aware that if you do ask us to pay off that interest, that payment is considered taxable income, so you'll have to claim it. Federal loan forbearance is not guaranteed, and you must initiate the process by submitting a loan forbearance request in your account at my.americorps.gov. You'll be able to do this about a week or so into your service by using the My Education Award link, which will appear in your account. Now, if you pick the end of service cash stipend, or if you have private student loans, you can then request loan deferment, which is different than National Service Forbearance. Loan deferment means that you apply directly with your lender and you give the reason of economic hardship. You may be able to have your accrued interest paid by the Department of Education if you have a federally subsidized loan that's deferred. You also may be able to have a portion of your Perkins loan forgiven. Again, loan deferment is not guaranteed, and it may not be offered by all lenders. You would have to take the initiative, and you would check directly with your lender for specifics about what they offer. Again, neither of these, loan forbearance and loan deferment, neither of them happen automatically. You need to request them using the appropriate process. For more information on everything that we just covered, go to the Education Award tutorial, which you can see there's a link there on the screen, nationalservice.gov/resources/edaward. You can also get to it from the VISTA Campus. And after you've officially started service, you can go to your account in my.americorps.gov and submit your loan forbearance request. Remember that it's your responsibility to submit the request and to check on its status. At the end of the year, it's also your responsibility to submit your Education Award payment requests, as well as a request for interest accrual payments.
So next up, let's look at healthcare benefits. The VISTA program offers two different health benefit options. One for VISTAs who have health coverage, like insurance or Medicaid, and the other for VISTAs who don't have health coverage. If you have health insurance or other coverage, you are eligible to enroll in the VISTA Healthcare Allowance, which provides reimbursement up to $7,900 for qualifying out-of-pocket healthcare expenses. You can use the healthcare allowance towards out-of-pocket expenses like co-payments for office visits, services or prescriptions, medications and medical supplies, or meeting your annual deductible. The allowance, however, will not reimburse you for the cost of buying health insurance or paying your monthly premium. And the other option, if you do not have any health coverage, you are eligible to enroll in the AmeriCorps VISTA Health Benefit Plan. This is a safety net plan that covers basic health care needs. It covers many basic services with very low copays. But it does have some limitations, and importantly, it does not cover pre-existing conditions. Both of these options also include limited dental and vision benefits, and both benefit options are free and cover only you, the VISTA member. To receive a benefit, you must enroll. There is no automatic enrollment. So in about 2 weeks or so, you're going to get an email from IMG, the VISTA Health Plan Administrator, with instructions on how to enroll. VISTAs who want to seek coverage through the health insurance marketplace can take advantage of a special enrollment period of 60 days. This is 60 days from your start date as well as the end dates of your VISTA service. Go to healthcare.gov to shop for plans and see what subsidies you qualify for. But to enroll during a special enrollment period, you will need to call the marketplace.
All right, let's talk about a few other benefits that are available to VISTA members. Realize that some of these benefits may not apply to you because they are not one size fit all. So these benefits include relocation and child care. For those of you who are relocating more than 50 miles from your home of record to your VISTA service site, you may qualify for a relocation travel allowance and a one-time settling in allowance. If you're eligible for financial travel support, you should have already received communication from the VISTA Member Support Unit, known as the VMSU. If you relocated more than 50 miles to your service site and you have not yet gotten an email confirmation, you can ask about your eligibility status by emailing VMSU, that stands for VISTA Member Support Unit, VMSU@cns.gov. AmeriCorps VISTA also offers a child care benefit to VISTAs who qualify. To qualify, you have to meet certain eligibility requirements, such as household income limits, and you must be the parent or legal guardian of a child who's under the age of 13 and who resides with you. For more information about the child care benefit and to apply, go to AmeriCorpsChildCare.com.
And as a VISTA member, you have certain leave benefits available during your year of service. You have 10 days of personal leave and 10 days of sick leave available to you. But make sure to read the VISTA Member Handbook, which is a great resource for you, regarding the time periods you are permitted to use your leave. Additionally, you will be able to observe the national holidays that are recognized by your service site. So, for example, if your site observes Labor Day as a day off, then you would also have that day off. However, you do not get excused leave for federal holidays that are not recognized by your site. So, for example, if your site does not give its staff a holiday for Veterans Day, you are also expected to serve that day, unless, of course, you request and receive approval for 1 day of personal leave for that day. You also do not get excused leave if your site is closed for several days or for an extended period of time. An example of that may be over the winter holidays, as you would then need to work with your supervisor to either still serve during that time or use personal leave. So if you come up with that situation, just reach out to your supervisor and work on a plan so that you're still serving during that time. Your supervisor and you will monitor your time and attendance, and you will send any leave requests to your supervisor. So, I know we just covered a lot of information. As you have heard, as a VISTA, you have access to a lot of benefits during your year, and we hope that you now have a better idea of how to find out more about those benefits and also what action steps are needed to take in order to make use of them. Now we're going to review with you some of the key terms and conditions of VISTA service. We know that many of you have already completed the VISTA terms and conditions online, but we want to make sure everyone is clear on the conditions. So we're going to do a quick interactive activity to review the main conditions of VISTA service. So here's how it works. In just a minute, I'm going to read an activity, and using your annotation tool, indicate whether you believe the answer is yes or no. So for the annotation tool, which you'll soon be able to access, you'll first want to select the square icon in the drawing tool pane on the left side of the slide to activate the annotation toolbar. Next, select the arrow next to the square, the little tiny arrow, to expand your shape options and either select a check mark or an X. You can select anywhere on the slide to place your shape in response to the statement on the screen. We ask that you please don't drag the symbol on the screen because it can get pretty big and cover up other people's answers. So a simple click of it will suffice. And if you're using a cell phone or tablet, the annotation function won't work. So in that case, we would ask you to type your answer in the chat box. So let's get started with the first question.
All right, so here's your first question. Yes or no, I can voice my political opinion using social media where my profile identifies me as an AmeriCorps VISTA member. So again, you'll use that annotation tool and just click either on yes or no. If you don't immediately get that annotation, use the little arrow next to the box to expand the menu.
We're seeing a lot of no's.
A lot of no's coming in.
And in the chat as well, monitoring a couple yeses here and there.
All right, yeah, we've got a handful of yeses. We'll give you like 4 more seconds and then we'll switch that off. All right, so let's check out what the answer is. The actual answer is yes. You can list VISTA on your social media profile, but you cannot represent yourself as either a spokesperson for the AmeriCorps program or for VISTA, the Corporation for National Community Service, or your sponsor. Also, you can't do this, voicing your political opinions. You can't do it while you're serving, not during your service hours or at your site or using any of the equipment at your site. You need to do it on your own time, using your own equipment, in your own home. Also, it's important to note that you should not put the CNCS or AmeriCorps VISTA logo as your profile picture, because doing that gives the impression that you are representing the program, that you're an official site or official social media account. So don't use our logo in your social media, particularly if you're voicing political or other sensitive opinions on that. When in doubt, keep your VISTA service and your political activity completely separate. If you want more background on this, you can always refer to the Hatch Act for more detailed information. And that's part of the Terms and Conditions course.
So next question, I can demonstrate in a political rally, yes or no? And we'll give you a 30 seconds or so to type your answer in the chat or to use that annotation tool. And as far as the annotation tool, it looks almost 100% yeses.
Yeah, a lot of yeses in the chat, a couple of no's typed in, but mostly yeses. Some people have given a little bit of explanation. They're on board.
Okay, a couple more seconds for the last few to put their answer in. And the answer is yes. So the vast majority are correct. Yes, as long as you are not identified as a VISTA or perceived to be a VISTA. So that perceived to be a VISTA note is important because some of you might be serving in a small town or a local area where you're not necessarily wearing your VISTA polo shirt and shouting it and not necessarily, have VISTA gear on and people know that. But since it's a small town or local area, people happen to know that you are a VISTA member. In that case, when in doubt about a specific activity, it's best to avoid it initially and consult with your supervisor or state office for approval or at a minimum for a little bit of clarification.
All right, next up, I can ask people to donate money to a partisan political candidate as long as it's on my own time and I'm not identified as a VISTA. Yes or no? We've got a mix of responses coming in here. Seems more or less evenly split, both between in the chat and on the slide.
Yeah, it does.
All right, well, since the coursework isn't due until tomorrow, some of you may not have gotten this far into it, so, because obviously you can't all be right. We'll give you like a couple more seconds. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the correct answer, and the answer is no. This is like a really hard and fast no. You cannot raise money on behalf of a partisan political candidate at any time during your VISTA year. Doesn't matter if it's off-duty or if you're at home or if you're not identified as a VISTA. The Hatch Act prohibits all fundraising for partisan political candidates. You can, however, raise funds in support of an issue, but you have to do it again on your own time and not be identified as a VISTA member. But for candidates, partisan political candidates, absolutely not. Chris?
And this is a question that oftentimes many get correct. I can have outside employment and or earn additional income while serving as a VISTA member. Yes or no? And the overwhelming majority are yeses. I see a yes, but.
Which kind of.
Yeah.
There's a handful of no's as well.
Mm-hmm. Give a few more seconds as we see these answers coming in. Yes, as long as you discuss it. I like the explanations in the chat. And some right along that line of yes, no. Okay, so the answer is yes. While you are allowed to have outside part-time employment, there are a few key policy items to keep in mind. So those who are saying yes, but, you are correct. First, outside employment must not conflict with your project service or service hours, nor can it conflict with any applicable law or VISTA program requirements or policies. Also, under no circumstances may a VISTA member be an employee of or contractor for the sponsor or project to which they are assigned to serve. Your supervisor must approve and agree that the outside work will not interfere with the VISTA project. If the work does interfere, the VISTA may be asked to either end employment or to end VISTA service. Also, only part-time outside employment is allowed while serving as a VISTA member. And when having outside employment, you will have to complete the outside employment request form, which is available within the outside employment policy. You can find this on the VISTA Campus. It's a short form. It's not very long or detailed, but it is required for anyone having that outside employment. And then submit it to your supervisor. More information regarding this employment policy can be found at vistacampus.gov. You can either type in the search box outside employment, or there is a link in the helpful links document in this on your handouts to download.
All right. Well, that was kind of fun. Thank you all for participating. And a couple of you noted that these are kind of tricky questions, and you're right. We didn't pick the black and white ones, the ones that are easy. We picked the ones that have that gray area. So we wanted to make sure that you're well informed on some of the nuances here. All right, so we've given you a lot of information, but before we wrap up the presentation and move to your questions, we want to recap for you the things that you need to do to complete by tomorrow, ideally, so that we can verify the information in your account before your first day of service, which of course is next Monday. So within your account in my.americorps.gov, you need to complete 4 forms: the direct deposit, the federal tax withholding, the one called unpaid compensation information. That's where you give us a designation of a beneficiary. If something were to happen to you while you're a VISTA member and you die, who we should pay your living allowance payment to. And then your end of service benefit selection. That's the education award or the cash stipend. And then on the VISTA Campus, there are these coursework that you need to complete. You see them all listed there. I'm not going to read them. The most urgent, so if you're running short on time, the most urgent for you to complete are the VISTA terms and conditions and the civil rights and responsibilities, because you have to complete those 2 and you have to certify your acceptance of them before you start serving. If you haven't done them, you won't be able to start.
And now that we've taken care of those action items, we want to know what you thought. How can we improve this presentation for future VISTA members? We ask that you please take a few moments to complete a brief survey. We certainly appreciate your feedback on this, and we will use this to address any areas where we can improve the webinar for future VISTAs. So we certainly look forward to these answers when they come in. And we're going to give some minutes for you to complete this survey. And while doing so, we will take some of the questions in the Q&A pod. So are there any questions on what you need to do before and on your first day of service? Also, are there any questions of any of those benefits? I did see a few of those come in that we're gonna go over in a minute. So there are 2 ways to ask questions. You can post those in the Q&A pod, sending the question to presenters, and you can also ask a question verbally now, and we can invite our operator Steve to provide instructions for anyone who may want to ask a question by phone.
Thank you, Chris. If you dialed into the webinar or had Adobe Connect call you back, you can ask questions using your phone. To ask questions over the phone line, press *# and you will be placed into the queue. When it's your turn to ask a question, you will hear the prompt, "Go ahead, caller." Then you may proceed with your question. Once again, to ask a question over the phone line, press *# to be placed in the queue. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. We'll check back with Steve on the line, but for now.
Your microphone has been turned on.
Coursework and a couple of questions related to the online coursework and the forms that need to be completed. And the gist of those questions was, hey, I think I did everything, but how can I check? Unfortunately, our systems don't have a really nice graphic that shows up and says, congratulations, you're done. You've really just got to go back and look at the checklist that's on the Starting VISTA page, and then compare that. Go into your account in My AmeriCorps and open up each of the 4 forms and see if it's there. And then look as well on the left menu, and if you see the VISTA Terms and Conditions link, click on that one and open it up and make sure that there's a check mark and your name and a date that you certified your acceptance of the terms and conditions. So that's the way you can do it. And realize that if it's not done, you'll be hearing from our friends at the VISTA Member Support Unit.
And we had someone, looks like a question, just going through these. If I already have 100% health coverage, am I required to select a health benefit option? And no, you don't have to. You're not required to. It's optional. You can opt out if that's the case. So once IMG contacts you, we would just ask you to let them know you wish to opt out. But for others, again, just to reiterate, it's no cost to the VISTA member for those who might be concerned that something might be deducted from your living allowance. That's not the case. Nothing is deducted. It's either the healthcare allowance or health benefit plan are there for you, the VISTA member.
All right. We have a couple other questions about online coursework. The ones that you really need to get done by tomorrow, if at all possible, are the terms and conditions and the civil rights and responsibility. But we absolutely want you to complete the others, particularly the benefits, so that you know what's available to you and you know how to access it. And the others, you'll see that there are a few others that are relatively short. Please complete those before you start on Monday. You might also have gotten, when you created your account in the VISTA Campus, you might also have gotten an email from the VISTA Campus that says, hey, here are some suggested coursework for you. That happens because we also, the VISTA Campus likes to promote some of the materials that are there, so you'll, from time to time, you may get a notice that says, hey, here's a resource worth checking out. If it's suggested, then it's not required, but you may, but the ones that are required will show up as required there.
A couple questions on relocation and the travel profile. So just to kind of repeat, you should, if you are moving more than 50 miles from your home of record to serve at your VISTA project, you should be eligible for relocation benefits. And you should have received an email from the VISTA Member Support Unit with details about relocation. If you moved more than 50 miles and you haven't received a notification, or maybe you did receive the notification but you had some additional questions, we certainly recommend you reach out to the VMSU. So they can be reached through the National Service Hotline. You can call 1-800-942-2677, and that number is plastered all over VISTA Campus, so you can find that. Or you could email them, as Andy mentioned earlier. That email address is vmsu@cns.gov.
All right. Well, we've got a number of questions relating to benefits, and particularly around health care. So let's try to dive into some of those. And these are not in any necessarily particular order. So we've got someone who says, hey, I've got insurance coverage, but it's in another state. And since I'm not going to be there, I can't really use it. So what do I do? Well, if that's the case, then you should apply for the VISTA Health Benefit Plan. That's our safety net plan. Essentially, if you don't have other coverage, you can enroll in our plan. But check it out. Make sure it's going to meet your needs, because it doesn't cover everything in all situations. There are some limitations there, so make an informed choice. The other thing is to check with your current insurance provider and see if they have a plan in the place where you're going to be serving, because some insurers have multi-state coverage, and you might be able to stay on the same policy but be covered in a different state. So it's worth checking out those couple of options. Another question here, I don't remember who asked it, was around the dental. Looks like Nigeria asked about, can I use the healthcare allowance to cover braces and orthodontics? And unfortunately, no. It's relatively limited coverage for dental. It's basically you can get a complete exam and x-rays and teeth cleaning once during your service year. And then if you need fillings and something like basic treatment, you can use the allowance for that kind of service. There are more details are on the VISTA Healthcare page, the IMG page. The link is in the helpful links resource that you can download from this webinar.
And just to check with our operator, Steve, did we have any callers call in?
Yes, Chris, we have a caller with a question.
Okay.
Go ahead, caller. Go ahead, caller.
Hello?
Yeah, I think maybe what's happening there is if someone has a phone, like a speakerphone, and their computer microphone is on at the same time, it'll create that feedback loop.
That'd be correct. Chris, we have one more caller on the line. Go ahead. Oh, looks like they disconnected. Go ahead, Chris.
Okay, thanks, Steve. So for the person who may have disconnected or who had that feedback, if you can, turn off the audio and you want to feel like calling back, please feel free to do so.
All right, so we've got a question from Brady about end-of-service benefits like the education award or the interest loan payment. And the question says, if I don't finish the full year of service, will my student loan interest be paid off for the time that I did serve, or is it an all or nothing kind of thing? Well, it's an all or nothing kind of thing, for the most part. There are certain very limited circumstances, what we call compelling personal circumstances, that if that were to occur, then a VISTA member could get a partial award at the end of their time served. But for the most part, it's an all or none thing. So you have to finish the 365 days to get the education award, to get the non-competitive eligibility, and to be eligible for the interest accrual payment. If you leave early, say you take a job, and even if you leave a day early, that would disqualify you from all those benefits. So it's important. It's a very important point to make out. So Brady, thank you for that question.
And there's a question, if I currently have health insurance, but during the middle of my service, I'll turn 26 and will no longer be covered. Which plan would I be eligible for? So good question, and this does come up. So if you, for example, have health coverage now, a few months into your service, you lose that coverage, you have the option to switch from one benefit to the other with IMG. IMG is the health plan administrator. So when that happens, you're going to proceed as normal right now. You're going to let IMG know in a couple of weeks that you have health coverage, and you're going to sign up for the healthcare allowance, that allowance that helps reimburse out-of-pocket costs. And then a few months down the line, if you happen to lose that health coverage, again, you would just want to contact IMG and let them know. Preferably give them a heads up, maybe 30 days prior to that final date of coverage. That way they can ask you to get the proper paperwork in and let you know the proper procedures or steps to take. But yeah, they'll switch you over to the health benefit plan in that scenario.
Great. And a couple of other health care related questions. So Jasmine asked, is there a deadline to apply for some of these benefits like child care or health care? And yes, there is. With health care, it's 60 days from your start date, so 60 days from next Monday. You'll get an email from the administrator, IMG, with instructions for how to sign up. You can't do it just yet because you're not a VISTA yet. They'll send you an email with instructions, so watch for that in a couple weeks from next week. And with child care, I don't recall the exact deadline, but you won't be receiving any benefits until your application is complete. And with the child care benefit, that process can take a little bit of time, so you're going to want to get started right away. Otherwise, whatever time passes, you won't be able to go back and make a claim in the past. See, Jack asks, does the healthcare allowance help to cover Medicare costs? And yeah, so if you are covered under Medicare or really any other kind of health plan, any out-of-pocket expenses, say for prescriptions or a copay at a doctor's visit or for services like x-ray or other kinds of treatments, you can get reimbursed for those out-of-pocket expenses using the healthcare allowance.
And I just wanted to check back with our operator, Steve. I don't know if any of those callers called back or if any new callers called in.
Yes, Chris, we have a caller ready with a question.
Great.
Go ahead, caller.
Yes. My phone is not acting very smart, but is there a link for the handouts and the survey?
I'm
Hello?
sorry, and it was a little bit low, but it sounded like you were asking if there was a link to the handouts and additionally a link to the survey.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, okay. Yes.
So that I can online.
So the survey link is here. We can, if you cannot view it, if you're not able to view it right now, I can search. I'm sorry?
I'm not able to click on it.
Not able to, huh? I wonder
See it,
if
but
this... That's okay. If you, do you mind, you can either send this through the Q&A, send a note just asking for us to send it, and we'll look you up and shoot you an email with the link. I don't know if that would be preferable. I could do that right now.
That's great. I can do that.
Okay. And the handouts will come back. Had you attempted to select the handouts previously?
Yes. It says unacceptable or unsupported area.
You're joining from a smartphone?
Yes, I am.
Oh, I see. Sorry. Yeah, some of the features for the handouts aren't accessible by smartphone. But Andy, correct me if I'm wrong, the link should still work though, or maybe.
Not for the handouts. And the survey link pod might not be clickable on the phone.
Okay.
The handouts, we'll post a recording of the webinar, and the handouts will be there as well. So you'll get an email with that information a few days, maybe the end of the week or early next week.
Okay, that'll be great.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Steve, were there any other callers in the queue?
There's no callers in the queue at this time.
Okay.
We just had one pop in.
Oh, great.
Go ahead, caller. You may ask your question now. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. My name is Jordan, and I currently have I selected the end-of-service benefit just to be the cash stipend instead of the education award. And I'm wondering, because I do have an outstanding promissory note for mine when I went to college about 2 or 3 years ago, and I was wondering if that education award could be applied to a promissory note.
Unfortunately, no. It wouldn't be able to be applied in that scenario.
Okay.
The education award, yeah. For promissory notes or even, yeah, we often get questions about, someone attended a class and it wasn't necessarily on loan, but they had an outstanding bill and were wanting to use the education award from a previous semester. And unfortunately, it can't be used in those scenarios. It would have to be a qualifying federal loan.
Okay. Thank you.
A good question. Thanks.
One other question I see here related to student loans, and that was, can you use the education award towards a parent loan? I'm guessing like a Parent Plus loan. And the answer there is no, because the loan has to be in your name. So in a Parent Plus loan, for example, the loan is in your parent's name. You won't be able to use your education award for that type of loan. There are lots of types of loans out there, so if you have any doubt, I invite you to look through the Education Award tutorial because it talks about various types of loans and how the Education Award may or may not be used in those cases. Also, Grace had a question about state taxes, and it's like, hey, can you help me figure out how much tax I might owe? Well, a lot depends on the state where you're going to be living, because that will determine the rate. Some states don't even have income tax. So what I recommend you do is go online, look for the website for your state's Department of Taxation, or sometimes called Department of Revenue or Tax and Revenue. Try searching those terms. And then look for the tax table. And you'll have to figure in your, estimate how much money you're going to make this year. Maybe you already have some income from the first couple months of 2019. If you have a part-time job, you might have to factor that in for your total income. And then look at the tax table and see, if you earn between this amount and that amount, it'll tell you how much tax you would likely need to pay. And then you can just set aside a little bit of money out of each paycheck so that come tax time next year, you'll have some funds available to pay that.
And I just wanted to check back with Steve. Steve, did we have any other calls come in?
Yes, Chris, we have another caller. Go ahead, caller, with your question.
Oh, if you don't complete your year, can you try again another time?
Yeah. If you aren't able to complete a full 365 days of VISTA service, we understand that can happen. Certainly, circumstances beyond a person's control at times, and at times, maybe it's just not a perfect fit. That happens from time to time, and in that case, certainly, you can certainly reapply to the VISTA program at a future date, either with that same project or with a separate project. That's not a problem at all. I don't know if that caller is still on the line with a follow-up question, or if there are any
Yeah,
other
I'm here.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, no problem.
So if you're in the position you're in now and another one becomes available during that year, can you switch or can you not?
No, we ask that Vistas don't do that because we do want Vistas to commit to their current project for the full year. Because if not, it can end up being unfair to the initial project who really worked to get that VISTA for the full year and had the plan for the VAD. Not that we don't understand. I understand what you're saying and certainly could see the appeal, but yeah, as the VISTA program asks that you complete the full year and then apply to a separate program.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you, and good question.
Yeah, and related to that, Christopher asked about continuing on for a second year of service at the same sponsoring organization. That is possible, but it's entirely up to the sponsor. So it depends if they have a VISTA position in the following year, what that position is focused on, and if you're right to fit that position. So you're just getting started now. It's a little early to be thinking about that, but it's definitely a possibility down the road. Likewise, you can always do another search as you're nearing the end of your VISTA term if you want to look for another opportunity.
And Steve, I believe was there one more caller that had called in?
Yes, Chris, we have one more caller.
Thanks.
Oh, it disconnected. Sorry.
Okay, well, we'll be on the lookout. I did see a question just now in the chat asking about mentioning, hey, on my first day of service next week, I'm going to be in training all day. So how am I able to attend the webinar? And that is a common question that comes up. So we do want to point out that the webinar is at the exact same time, 3 p.m. Eastern time, but on next Monday, your first day of service. And all sponsors, projects, supervisors, the project where you're going to show up to work, they should all be aware that you need to attend this webinar. And they should have set aside time. So some of you may have received a notification that you're going to be in training that whole day. If that's the case, then this webinar on Monday should be integrated into that training. And if for any reason you find out that that's not the case, please, just let your supervisor aware. Maybe they forgot or just weren't given that information passed on for some odd reason. Just let them know, hey, I have this required training with the VISTA headquarters at 3 p.m. Eastern time. I need to attend this webinar, and they're going to accommodate it and allow you to attend. And if there are any additional questions or follow-up questions on that, please feel free to email me as well, reply to any of those emails. And just looking. A lot of questions. Some of these already answered. I'll check on the phone line. Steve, did we have any other callers in the queue?
We do. Let me promote them. No, they disconnected again. Sorry about that.
Well, that's fine. Just playing a little phone tag.
All right, so this is a little off the topic of this webinar, but Leanne asked, is there a Facebook group within my site area? Well, I'm not sure where Leanne is going to be serving, but there are a number of Facebook groups for VISTA members. They're not official. They're not ones created by us. They're created by other VISTA members out there in different parts of the country. If you're clever at searching, you'll be able to find them. They have all different sorts of names. Some of them reference a location. Some of them, a period of time during which the VISTA members started. So it might say like spring of, a certain year. So look for those, and then before you join, you might just want to scan it a little to see how active it is, if it's still going, because sometimes these groups are created and then over time they sort of dwindle. So, but anyway, there are many of them out there. So if that interests you, by all means, do a search.
And I saw another question, and I think Andy touched on this, but another question came in about regarding the education award and the interest paid at the end of your year of service. So the question asks, will the accrued interest paid at the end of the term of service be deducted from the education award? So no, that's that interest, I assume the person is talking about the forbearance. You put your loans into forbearance, and at the end, the National Service Trust will pay off the interest accrued. That's a separate payment from what your education award is. It's completely separate and an additional benefit. So you'll still have your full education award amount after that. Just, you know, we want to reiterate too that when you use your education award, in addition to that interest payment, they're subject to taxes when it occurs. And you have 7 years to use your education award after you receive it. So you could use a little bit in 1 year and a little bit in the following year. It doesn't have to be all used at one time. Well, I'm not seeing any new questions, but if any questions happen to come in, we're going to wrap things up. Feel free to keep typing, and we'll get back to you privately. Or again, you know your resources now, whether it's benefits related, to contact the VISTA Member Support Unit. I'm available. You can respond to any of those emails sent regarding these trainings, the webinars, and your supervisor and state office. So we will wrap things up, and we do want to thank you all for joining us on this call. We certainly look forward to seeing you next week, which again is Monday, March 18th. We just want to repeat that, your first day of service. So for the Launching Your VISTA Service webinar, we hope that you all have a wonderful week. And from all of us here at VISTA and CNCS,